Think about what it means to be born with a destiny. Before he could speak, the world had already decided who he was. He was a balance, a shift in the universe. When he was born, the scales tipped. The shadows grew longer because his light was so bright. Imagine that weight, to be a child and realize that your existence changes the world. It is not a choice, it is a state of being. That being is Satoru Gojo. He is defined by what he can do. The six eyes see the flow of the world. They see the sparks of life. They see the cracks in reality. But do they see the man? When everyone looks at you and sees a god, the you begins to disappear. The ego becomes a mask. The playfulness, the arrogance, the smiles, they are layers of a wall designed to keep the world at a distance. The infinity is not just a technique, it is a philosophy. It is the space between the self and the other. No matter how close you get, there is always a gap, a million tiny points of nothingness. It is the ultimate defense, but it is also the ultimate barrier. To be untouchable is to be alone. To be the strongest is to be a category of one. We often ask if he is the strongest because he is Gojo, or if he is Gojo because he is the strongest. This is the central question of his soul. If you took away the power, if the blue eyes faded to gray, who would be left? Is there a person beneath the legend, or has the legend consumed the person entirely? He walks through the world with a certain lightness, a grace that looks like indifference. But perhaps that lightness is a survival mechanism. When you carry the weight of the entire jujutsu world, you have to be light. If you let the gravity of your choices settle in, you might never move again. So he floats. He dances on the edge of chaos. He treats the most dangerous moments like a game. Because if it isn't a game, it's a tragedy. And he has seen enough tragedy to last many lifetimes. Identity is usually built on our connections to others. I am a son. I am a friend. I am a teacher. But for him, those roles are always filtered through his strength. He is the teacher who must protect. He is the friend who cannot be reached. He is the son of a lineage that only cares about his eyes. His identity is a lonely peak in a mountain range. He can see everyone else in the valley. He can wave to them. He can shout down to them. But they cannot climb to where he stands. The air is thin at the top. It is quiet. It is cold. But the view is infinite. He stays there because he has to. He stays there because if he descends, the valley falls. This is the core of his being, a man who is everything to everyone, but who might be a mystery even to himself. When you think about Gojo, it's easy to get caught up in the flashy stuff, the gravity powers, the way he looks. But if you really sit with it, his life is actually kind of strange. Most of us spend our lives trying to be better, trying to get stronger or smarter. We're always reaching for something. But Gojo starts at the finish line. He's already there. Imagine waking up and knowing there's nothing you can't do. That sounds like a dream, right? But think about it for a second. If you can do everything, then does anything actually matter? Value usually comes from effort. It comes from the risk of failing. When you remove the possibility of failure, you change the way you see the world. You start to look at things a bit differently. He acts like a bit of a brat sometimes. He's loud. He eats sweets in the middle of serious meetings. He messes with his superiors. On the surface, it looks like he's just arrogant. And yeah, he definitely is. But maybe that's the only way to stay sane. If you're the guy who holds all the cards, why would you follow someone else's rules? The rules are for people who need protection. He doesn't need protection. People expect him to be this perfect icon, this pillar of morality. But he's just a guy who happens to be a god. He has a sense of humor. He gets annoyed. He has favorite snacks. He tries so hard to be Satoru instead of just the 6 eyes. That's why he wears the blindfold or the sunglasses. It's a physical way to turn it off, to try and see the world like a normal person for 5 minutes. He's constantly processing an infinite amount of data. His brain is basically a supercomputer that never sleeps. Think about how exhausting that would be. Every sound, every movement, every chemical change in the air. He's aware of all of it. So when he's being casual or acting goofy, it's a break. It's him trying to find a way to relax in a body that's always on. We see him as this untouchable figure, but he's actually very present. He's there in the moment. He's not thinking about the past or worrying about the future like we do. He doesn't have to. He just exists in the right now. There's a certain peace in that, even if it's a peace that nobody else can really share with him. He's the most famous person in his world, but nobody really knows him. They know his techniques. They know his reputation. But the version of him that just wants to hang out and watch a movie, that's the part he keeps hidden, because the world doesn't want a human. They want a savior. And he's kind enough to play the part. Think back to when he was a teenager. He wasn't always this enlightened figure. Back then, he and Geto had this ongoing debate. Geto believed the strong exist to protect the weak. He thought strength was a social duty. But Gojo? Young Gojo hated that. He thought righteousness was a drag. He was just a kid with a lot of power who wanted to do what he wanted. Then Toji Fushiguro happened, the guy with 0 cursed energy, the monkey. Toji was the first person to actually make Gojo feel the cold breath of death. That moment in the Star Tomb where he gets stabbed through the throat, that changed everything. It wasn't just a near-death experience. It was a rebirth. When he floated up into the air afterwards, covered in blood, looking at the sun, he wasn't thinking about saving the world. He wasn't thinking about Riko Amanai, the girl who just died. He said it himself. Throughout heaven and earth, I alone am the honored one. In that moment, he became a bit of a monster. He felt the core of cursed energy. He realized that at the highest level of power, you aren't human anymore. You're a phenomenon. He reached a state of pure ecstasy because he finally understood the math of the universe. But that's the tragedy of it. The moment he became the strongest, he lost his ability to relate to everyone else. He ascended, and he left his best friend behind in the dust. Think about the technique itself, the red and the blue, the lapse and the reversal. It's literally the manipulation of space to create attraction and repulsion. His whole life is a push and a pull. He pulls people in because he wants to be a good teacher, a good leader, but his nature, his power, pushes them away. He exists in that hollow purple space, the imaginary mass, the place where things that shouldn't exist do. And then there's the brain maintenance. He's literally frying his brain with the limitless and then instantly healing it with reverse curse technique. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. He is constantly destroying and rebuilding himself just to stay functional. If he stops for even a second, the weight of all that information would crush him. When you realize that, the arrogance starts to look more like a desperate need for a distraction. He's living in a constant cycle of self-destruction and healing. Every smile he gives you is coming from a brain that is being manually rebooted every few seconds. He chose to become a teacher because he realized that being the strongest isn't enough. One person can't change the world. He saw Geto spiral into darkness. He saw the corruption of the higher-ups, the old men who only care about their status. He realized that if he just killed them all, someone else would just take their place. So he chose the long game, education. fostering a new generation that doesn't just rely on him. He's trying to build a world where the strongest doesn't need to exist anymore. He's trying to make himself obsolete. You'd think that being the strongest would mean you have the most freedom. But for Gojo, it's the exact opposite. The more power you have, the more you become a prisoner of the status quo. He looks at the Jujutsu elders, those old men in the dark rooms, and he sees everything wrong with their world. They're cowards, they're obsessed with heritage and purity, and they're terrified of him. He could have wiped them out in an afternoon. He literally says it. It would be easy to kill everyone at the top, but he doesn't do it. Not because he respects them, he definitely doesn't. He doesn't do it because he knows that a revolution built on blood doesn't last. If he kills the leaders, he's just a dictator. And a dictator is just another kind of monster. He wants a revolution of the heart. He wants to change the way people think, not just who's in charge. Think about the burden of being a deterrent. Because Gojo exists, the strongest curses stay in the shadows. Because Gojo exists, other sorcerers can have a somewhat normal life. He is the lid on a boiling pot. If he leaves, even for a second, the pressure explodes. We see that later in Shibuya. The moment he's sealed, the world literally falls apart. The peace wasn't real. It was just a shadow cast by one man standing in front of the sun. That's a massive psychological weight to carry. Every time he takes a day off or goes to buy some souvenir sweets, people probably die. He has to live with the fact that his presence saves thousands, but his absence costs lives. It turns his entire life into a calculation. He has to be perfect. He has to be everywhere. He has to be the icon that everyone fears and everyone relies on. And then there's the tragedy of the star plasma vessel, Rico Ammonai. That was the moment he realized that all the power in the world can't save a person who is already trapped by the system. He was strong enough to kill anyone, but he wasn't strong enough to stop a girl from being treated like a tool. He wasn't strong enough to stop the weak from being cruel. That's the irony of Gojo. He can manipulate infinity, but he can't manipulate human nature. He hates the responsibilities of being a sorcerer, but he's the only one who actually takes them seriously. He protects the young. He protects Yuta when the elders wanted him dead. He protects Itadori. He sees these kids not as weapons, but as people who shouldn't have to carry the same loneliness he does. His responsibility isn't to the world as an abstract concept. It's to the future. It's to making sure the next generation is strong enough that they don't need a Satoru Gojo to survive. He plays the part of the arrogant teacher, but every time he sends a student on a mission, he's gambling with their lives. He knows the risks better than anyone. He knows what the six eyes see when a body stops moving. He carries that guilt behind the blindfold. He just doesn't let us see it. Let's talk about the long game. Gojo isn't just a soldier, he's an educator. Most people with his power would just force the world to change. They'd tear down the buildings, kill the corrupt leaders, and start over. But Gojo knows that's a trap. If you use strength to force peace, that peace only lasts as long as you're alive. The moment you close your eyes, the cycle starts again. That's why he tolerates the higher-ups. He lets those old men yell at him. He lets them try to execute his students. It's not because he's weak, it's because he's waiting for the fruit to ripen. He's looking for people like Yuta Okotsu and Kinji Hikari. People who don't just follow the rules because they're told to. He's looking for the new wave. Think about the way he handles the Sukuna situation. Any other sorcerer would have killed Yuji Itadori the second he ate that finger. It's the responsible thing to do. It's the safe thing to do. But Gojo chooses the irresponsible path. He bets on the boy. He bets on the human soul's ability to suppress a curse. That's a massive gamble with the lives of everyone on the planet. But that's Gojo. He'd rather risk a catastrophe for the chance of a better future than settle for a safe, miserable present. He lives in the gray areas. He knows that good and bad aren't as simple as the textbooks say. He killed his best friend, Satoru Gojo. He had to. It was his responsibility. But he didn't do it with a smile. He did it with a quiet last word that we never even got to hear. Even the strongest man in the world has to do things that break his heart. Power doesn't make the choices easier, it just makes the consequences heavier. He's the only one who can carry the limitless. But the real limitless isn't his technique, it's the amount of crap he has to put up with just to keep the world spinning. He's a man playing a 4D chess game against a world that's still playing checkers, and the worst part, he has to let the other side think they're winning just so they don't flip the board. In high school, it wasn't just Satoru Gojo, it was Satoru and Suguru. They were the strongest duo. Back then, his identity was tied to a best friend who could actually keep up. They had this effortless rhythm. One would crack a joke, the other would finish it. One would start a fight, the other would end it. For the first time in his life, Gojo wasn't an island. He was half of a whole. But then came the summer of 2006. The heat, the cicadas, and the mission to protect Riko Amanai. We talked about how he ascended during the Toji fight, but we didn't talk about what that did to his friendship. When Gojo learned to use reverse curse technique, he stepped into a different dimension. He became automated. He became untouchable. And in doing so, he accidentally left Gojo behind in the shadows. Imagine being Suguru Gojo for a second. You watch your best friend become a god. You watch him stop being tired, stop being vulnerable, while you are still stuck swallowing the revolting taste of cursed spirits. Gojo didn't notice the distance growing. He was too busy feeling the high of his own evolution. He was so focused on the infinite possibilities of his own power that he missed the very human breaking point of the only person he cared about. That's the first real layer of his loneliness. It's not just that people are weaker than him. It's that his strength acts as a wall that even his best friend couldn't climb over. When Gojo finally snapped, when he killed those villagers and chose the path of a curse, Gojo was the one who found him in Shinjuku. The most powerful sorcerer in history stood in a crowded street. He had the power to kill Gojo right there. He had the power to stop him. But for the first time, his power was useless. I can only save those who are prepared to be saved. That's a heavy thing for a god to admit. He realized that his eyes could see every atom in the air, but they couldn't see into his friend's heart. The infinity kept Gojo safe from enemies, but it also kept Gojo from reaching out and holding his hand. He let Gojo walk away into the crowd. Not because he couldn't catch him, but because he realized that being the strongest meant he was ultimately alone in his perspective. From that day on, the "we are the strongest" became "I am the strongest." The plural became singular, and the change in grammar changed his entire life. He stopped looking for an equal. He realized there would never be another one. Every relationship he had from that point on was lopsided. He was the sun, and everyone else was just a planet orbiting his gravity. It's a beautiful position to be in, sure, but the sun is a very lonely place to live. He doesn't talk about Gojo. He doesn't bring up the past, but he carries it in the way he looks at the sky. He carries it in the way he treats his students, trying to make sure they have the youth he lost. The blue spring ended in blood and silence, and Gojo was left standing in the middle of it, perfectly clean, perfectly safe, and completely isolated. After Gojo left, the world didn't stop. In fact, it got busier. But for Gojo, the silence was louder than ever. He had to face a reality where he was the only one at the peak. When you're at that level, You don't really have peers. You have subordinates, and you have enemies. Neither of those groups can ever truly understand what it's like to be you. He started spending more time alone, not because he wanted to, but because he had to. His presence alone was enough to shift the political landscape of Japan. He couldn't just go to a bar or a cafe without it being a statement. Everything he did was analyzed. Everything he said was weighed. So he leaned into the persona of the eccentric. If you act like a clown, people stop looking for the man behind the mask. He began to realize that his strength was a type of sensory deprivation. The limitless doesn't just stop physical objects, it stops emotional ones too. How do you connect with someone when you literally cannot be touched? When there is a mathematical infinity between your skin and the rest of reality? It's a metaphor for his whole life. He is always there, right in front of you. But he is infinitely far away. He tried to fill that void with things, the sweets, the high-speed trips to different cities just for a specific souvenir. He was chasing sensations. He was trying to feel something that wasn't just the constant hum of cursed energy. But no matter how much sugar he ate or how many miles he traveled, the gap remained. The blue spring was over. The era of us was gone. He started looking at the kids coming into the school. Megumi Fushiguro, the son of the man who almost killed him. Gojo didn't take him in out of spite. He took him in because he saw a spark. He saw the possibility of someone who could one day stand beside him. He wasn't looking for a student to boss around. He was looking for a person who wouldn't break under the weight of his shadow. That's the secret tragedy of his teaching career. It's a search for company. He pushes his students to be greedy with their power. He tells them to be selfish, because he knows that if they aren't strong enough to be selfish, they'll just become tools. And he's tired of being the only tool in the shed that's too sharp to handle. He wants a world where he can finally turn the 6 eyes off, where he can just be a person in a crowd. But until that day comes, he stays on his mountain, watching, waiting, and utterly alone. This isn't just about power levels, it's about his specific, complicated disdain and fascination with those who have no power at all, starting with the man who nearly ended him. To understand Gojo's view on the weak, you have to look at Toji Fushiguro. Toji was the ultimate anomaly, a man with absolutely no cursed energy. In the eyes of the jujutsu world, he was a monkey, someone to be ignored or looked down upon, but that monkey was the only person who ever truly outsmarted Satoru Gojo. Toji didn't use flashy spells. He used prep time. He used exhaustion. He used a regular old flyhead curse to clutter Gojo's vision. He proved that the strongest could be taken down by a person who was willing to get their hands dirty. That lesson stayed with Gojo forever. It's why he doesn't actually hate the weak. He hates the mentality of the weak. He hates the people who hide behind systems and rules because they're afraid to stand on their own. Think about the Zenin clan, the big families. They have all this traditional power, but they're terrified of anything they can't control. Gojo looks at them with pure disgust. To him, they're just small people in large rooms. They represent a weakness that is toxic, a weakness that tries to drag everyone else down to its level. But then there are the ordinary people, the non-sorcerers. He calls them protected species sometimes. It sounds condescending, and maybe a little bit of it is. But there's also a strange kind of envy there. He protects them, but he can never be one of them. He's like a human watching an ant colony. He respects the structure. He'll step over the hill so he doesn't crush it. But he knows he'll never know what it feels like to just be an ant. This creates a weird friction in his mind. He spends his whole life protecting people who will never understand him, people who would probably be terrified of him if they saw what he was really capable of. In Shibuya, we see this play out in the most brutal way. He's forced to fight in a subway station packed with thousands of regular people. The curses use those humans as shields. They know Gojo has a heart. They know that despite his god complex, he values those weak lives. He has to make a choice in a fraction of a second. Activate his domain expansion for 0.2 seconds. It's a gamble. He's flooding the brains of every normal person there with an infinite amount of information. He's effectively frying their minds for a moment to save their lives. That's his relationship with the weak in a nutshell. He will hurt you to save you. He will carry the burden of your trauma if it means you get to keep breathing. He doesn't want gratitude. He doesn't want them to know his name. He just wants them to exist so that the world feels like a world and not just a battlefield. Toji taught him that even a monkey can change the fate of the universe, and because of that, Gojo treats every life like a variable that matters, even if he's the only one who can see the math behind it. There is a difference between being weak and being small. Gojo has a lot of patience for the weak. He has almost zero patience for the small-minded. When he looks at the higher-ups of the jujutsu world, he doesn't see leaders. He sees people who are so afraid of losing their power that they've stopped being human. To him, that is the most pathetic kind of weakness. Think about the way they treated Yuta Okatsu, and later, Yuji Itadori. Their first instinct was to kill, to execute, to get rid of anything they couldn't fit into a neat little box. Gojo calls them rotten oranges. Once the rot starts at the top, it spreads to the whole crate. He realizes that the strongest can't fix a system that wants to be broken. He often wonders why these people who have lived so long are still so afraid. He has all the power in the world and he's willing to risk it. They have very little, and they cling to it like a life raft. It's a fundamental clash of philosophies. The elders believe that strength should be used to maintain the status quo. Gojo believes that strength should be used to break it. But he's stuck in a paradox. If he kills them, he becomes the very thing he hates, a tyrant who decides who lives and dies based on his own whims. He's self-aware enough to know that his own personality is a bit dangerous. He has a streak of cruelty in him. We see it when he fights Hanami or Jogo. He enjoys the dominance. He likes being the one who dictates the terms of the struggle. If he took over the world, he might not be a very good king. He knows he's too impulsive, too bored by the details of administration. So he lets the weak stay in power while he works in the shadows. It's a weird kind of humility. The strongest man alive, allowing himself to be managed by people he could erase with a blink. He does it because he believes in the idea of a world that belongs to everyone, not just a world that belongs to him. He's looking for a different kind of strength, not the kind that comes from a cursed energy, but the kind that comes from character. That's why he likes Nanami. Nanami isn't strong in the way Gojo is, but Nanami has a core. He has a set of values that don't waver. Gojo respects that more than any domain expansion, because to Gojo, being strong is easy. Being good, that's the real challenge. He spends his days surrounded by people who are terrified of him, and people who want to use him. The higher-ups see him as a necessary evil. The curses see him as a wall to be climbed. Hardly anyone sees him as a person who is just trying to do the right thing. So he keeps his distance. He keeps his jokes, and he keeps waiting for the day when the weak finally learn how to stand on their own 2 feet. There is a side of Satoru Gojo that isn't heroic. It's the side that comes out when the blindfold drops. In the world of jujutsu, he is the ultimate force of order, but in his heart, there is a deep, flickering love for chaos. You see it most clearly when he fights. He doesn't just win. He plays. Think about his first encounter with Jogo, the volcano curse. Gojo didn't just exorcise him. He turned the fight into a field trip. He literally teleported away, grabbed Yuji, a total beginner, and brought him back just to watch. That is an insane level of confidence. It's bordering on cruelty. He was using a special grade curse as a teaching prop. He was showing off not just to Yuji, but to the universe itself. He was saying, "Look at how small this disaster is compared to me." When he enters a battle, he enters a state of flow. It's like he's addicted to the adrenaline. Remember the look on his face in Shibuya when he was surrounded by thousands of transfigured humans? He wasn't panicked. He was calculating. But there was a glint in his eye that looked almost like joy. For a man who has to live every second in total control of his power, the moment he gets to let it out, even a little bit, it's like a drug. His domain expansion, the unlimited void, is the ultimate expression of this. It's not a physical attack, it's a conceptual one. He forces the target to perceive everything, to see every detail of the universe at once, to feel every emotion, hear every sound, and think every thought simultaneously. The irony is beautiful and horrific. He gives his enemies exactly what he has to live with every day. The six eyes see everything. Inside the void, the enemy is paralyzed by that same infinity. They are drowned in the sheer volume of existence. It shows us that Gojo's mind isn't a peaceful place. It's a storm of data. To maintain his sanity, he has to be the master of that chaos. He has to be the eye of the hurricane. That's why he's so obsessive about the little things. The precise temperature of his tea, the specific brand of shirt he wears, the silly nicknames he gives to people. These are the anchors. Without them, he would drift off into that unlimited void himself. He lives on a knife's edge, between the man who wants to protect the world and the god who finds the destruction of his enemies deeply, viscerally satisfying. He's not a saint. He's a person who has mastered his own internal chaos so well that he can use it to rewrite reality. But sometimes you catch a glimpse of the high, the moment in the Sukuna fight where he's smiling while his skin is being shredded by malevolent shrine. That's the real Satoru, a man who feels most alive when he's one step away from being unmade. To really understand the chaos Gojo manages, you have to look at the hollow purple. It is the peak of his technique. It is the collision of two infinities. The red, which is the power to repel. The blue, which is the power to attract. When he brings them together, he creates a mass that isn't supposed to exist. It is a virtual mass that erases everything it touches. Think about the precision that requires. He is holding the concept of existence and non-existence in his palms at the same time. It's like trying to balance a mountain on the tip of a needle. If his concentration slipped for even a billionth of a second, the reaction would consume him too. This is the control side of his nature. He is a master of the most volatile physics in the universe, but the chaos is why he uses it. In the Goodwill event, when he launched that purple against Hanami, he didn't have to do it that way. He could have caught the curse. He could have ended it quietly, but he chose to tear a literal trench through the forest. He chose the most destructive, most overwhelming display of power possible. It was a message to the curses, to the students, to the higher-ups watching the cameras. He was reminding everyone that order only exists because he allows it to. He treats his own body like a laboratory. We see him in battle, and he's constantly shifting his infinity. He can filter what touches him based on mass, speed, and cursed energy levels. A pen can touch him. A poisonous gas cannot. He has automated his own skin to be a judge of what is safe and what is danger. But that means he is never truly off. He is always judging, always sorting, always controlling the flow of the world around him. And yet, Look at how he lives when he's not fighting. His apartment is probably a mess of expensive gadgets and half-eaten snacks. He forgets to report to his superiors. He shows up late to every meeting. It's almost like he uses his personal life to vent all the chaos he isn't allowed to have in battle. The more perfect he has to be as a sorcerer, the more of a disaster he is as a person. He needs that balance. If he were the strongest 24 hours a day, he would lose his mind. He loves the thrill of the unknown. In Shibuya, when he realizes the disaster curses have actually come up with a plan to counter him, he isn't angry, he's fascinated. He likes it when things don't go according to plan. It's the only time he gets to feel like a human being instead of a machine. Chaos is the only thing that surprises him. And for a man who sees everything with the six eyes, a surprise is the greatest gift anyone can give him. Gojo often says he wants to reset the jujutsu world, but he's not a politician. He's a gardener. He looks at kids like Megumi Fushiguro, Yuta Okotsu, and Yuji Itadori, and he sees seeds. He sees a future where being strong doesn't have to mean being alone. That is his true legacy, not the curses he killed or the techniques he perfected, but the people he allowed to grow. Think about Megumi. Gojo didn't just find a talented kid and sign him up for school. He essentially raised him. He took a boy who was burdened by the dark history of the Zenin clan and gave him a choice. He told him, "Don't just be a part of the system. Be strong enough to make your own rules." He's hard on Megumi. He pushes him to be more greedy, to imagine a version of himself that can transcend his limits. He does this because he knows Megumi has the potential to stand right next to him, and Gojo is desperate for someone to stand next to him. Then there's Yuta. The world saw a boy possessed by a terrifying special grade curse. The higher-ups saw a problem that needed to be erased. Gojo saw a mirror. He saw a kid who was drowning in a power he didn't ask for. Gojo didn't just save Yuta from execution, he gave him a purpose. He showed him the power isn't a curse if you use it to protect the things you love. When Yuta went to Africa to train, Gojo wasn't just sending away a soldier. He was protecting a spark. He was making sure the next Gojo had a chance to become a human first. And of course, there's Yuji Itadori. Yuji is the ultimate test of Gojo's philosophy. He's a boy who swallowed a god of poison just to save a stranger. To the elders, Yuji is just a vessel for Sukuna, a countdown to a disaster. But to Gojo, Yuji is the proof that the human spirit can handle the impossible. He treats Yuji with a weird mix of playfulness and deep respect. He teaches him to control his emotions through movies and training. He treats him like a younger brother. Why does he care so much? Because Gojo knows that his time is finite. Even if he lived forever, a world that relies on one man is a world that is fundamentally broken. He calls his students the new wave. He wants them to be a tide that washes away the rotten oranges at the top. He wants to build a community of sorcerers who are strong enough to support each other. A world where a six-eyes user isn't a god, just a teacher. He carries their photos in his phone. He brags about them like a proud parent. It's the most human we ever see him. When he's with his students, the strongest mask slips. He becomes Satoru, the guy who wants to see his kids succeed, the guy who wants to make sure they get to have the blue spring that was stolen from him. His legacy isn't in the infinity of his power. It's in the infinite potential of the next generation. He knows he could be a god, but he chooses to be a bridge. That's the hardest part of his legacy to understand. Most people with his level of power would try to change the world by force, but Gojo has seen what happens when you try to fix things from the top down. He saw it with Gedo. Gedo tried to rewrite the world by cutting out the weak, and all it did was create a cycle of hatred that ended in a dark alleyway in Shinjuku. Gojo is playing a much longer game. He calls it fostering. He doesn't want students who just follow his orders. He wants students who are strong enough to disagree with him. Think about the way he treats the disruptive kids. Hakari, for example. Hakari was suspended for being a rebel, for starting his own underground fight club. Most teachers would see that as a failure. But Gojo? He loves it. He sees that fire and thinks, that's exactly what we need. He's looking for people with a flavor of their own. He doesn't want a dozen mini Gojos. He wants a diverse team of individuals who can solve problems he can't even imagine. Because his own power is a bit of a blind spot. When you can solve everything with a finger snap, you stop being creative. You stop being resourceful. He looks at Maki Zenin, someone with zero cursed energy, and he sees a pioneer. He sees someone who is proving the old ways are wrong just by existing. That is his true rebellion. He's not attacking the higher-ups with cursed techniques. He's attacking them with education. He's raising a generation of sorcerers who aren't afraid of the shadows, who don't care about clan names or traditional hierarchies. He is effectively making himself the last of his kind, the last strongest who has to stand alone. If his plan works, the concept of the strongest will become obsolete. Strength will be distributed. It will be shared. There's a quiet sadness in this goal. To succeed as a teacher, he has to become unnecessary. He is working toward a world where Satoru Gojo isn't a hero anymore. Just a guy who used to be good at jujutsu. He wants to be able to retire. He wants to go to a bakery and not have to worry if the city will burn down while he's waiting for his cake. He's building a cage for his own legend so that the man inside can finally be free. He often tells his students that when you're a sorcerer, you die alone. It's a grim lesson, but he's trying to change that too. By bringing these kids together, by making them a family, he's trying to break the curse of loneliness. He wants them to have what he and Suguru had, but without the tragic ending. He's giving them the tools to survive not just the curses, but the isolation that comes with being elite. His legacy isn't written in the sky. It's written in the lives of the kids who still have a smile on their faces despite everything. For a long time, Gojo thought his only limit was his own imagination. If he could think it, he could do it. But Shibuya changed the math. It wasn't a failure of strength. It was a failure of humanity. The disaster curses, Mahito, Jogo, Hanami, they didn't try to beat him in a fight. They knew they couldn't. Instead, they used his own heart against him. Think about that basement floor in the subway station, the sheer cruelty of the plan. To flood the tracks with thousands of people, turning them into a human shield. They bet everything on the fact that Satoru Gojo wouldn't just slaughter everyone to get to the target. And they were right. In that moment, his infinity was a handicap. He had to narrow his focus so much that it physically and mentally drained him. He was forced to play a game where the win condition was, don't let anyone die, while the enemies were playing a game where the only rule was chaos. But the real limit, the one that actually broke the world, was a memory. Kenjaku, inhabiting the body of Suguru Geto. When the prison realm was placed in front of him, it didn't matter how fast Gojo's brain worked. The condition for the seal was 1 minute passed within the mind. For a normal person, a minute is 60 seconds. But for the 6 eyes, a minute is an eternity of processed data. And when he saw that face, his best friend's face, 3 years of Blue Spring memories flooded back in an instant. He knew it wasn't really Suguru. His eyes told him the cursed energy was wrong, but his soul refused to believe it. That is the ultimate limit of Satoru Gojo. He is a god who is held back by the ghost of a human friendship. In that 1 minute of hesitation, the strongest sorcerer in history was trapped in a box. Not by a more powerful technique, but by a feeling. Inside the prison realm, time doesn't exist. It's a place of absolute stillness. Think about how terrifying that is for a man who is used to perceiving everything at once, to go from the unlimited void to a place of nothingness. It was the first time he had been truly powerless since he was a child. He couldn't protect his students. He couldn't stop the massacre happening above him. He had to sit in the dark and trust that the seeds he planted would be enough to save the world without him. This moment redefined him. It proved that even if you are the honored one, you are still a part of a story you can't always control. He realized that his existence was a double-edged sword. As long as he was there, everyone else stayed weak because they relied on him. By being removed from the board, he forced the world to finally grow up. It was a brutal, painful lesson, but it was the only way for his new wave to actually become a reality. To understand Gojo, you have to look at the two men who defined the borders of his life. On one side, you have Ryomen Sukuna, the king of curses. Sukuna is what Gojo could have been if he had abandoned his heart. Sukuna lives for nothing but his own pleasure and his own strength. He doesn't care about legacy. He doesn't care about students or the future. He is a pure, burning fire that consumes everything in its path. When Gojo talks about fighting Sukuna, there's a strange spark in his voice. It's almost like a form of respect, because Sukuna is the only other being who knows what it's like to be at the very top, to be so strong that the world feels like it's made of cardboard. In a weird, twisted way, they speak the same language. They are the only two people in history who can truly look each other in the eye. For Gojo, Sukuna isn't just a villain to be defeated. He's the ultimate mirror, a reminder that strength without love is just a disaster. Then, on the other side, you have the ghost of Suguru Geto, or rather the thing wearing his skin, Kenjaku. This is the rivalry that actually hurts. Sukuna challenges Gojo's power, but Kenjaku challenges his soul. Kenjaku is the ultimate pragmatist. He's a man who has lived for 1,000 years by being a parasite. He doesn't have the honor of a warrior. He uses trickery, planning, and the desecration of Gojo's only friend to get what he wants. Think about the cruelty of that dynamic. Gojo is a man who can see the flow of the universe, but he had to stand in Shibuya and watch his best friend's hands move under someone else's will. It's a mockery of everything Gojo values. He values the individual. He values the human heart. And here is a creature that treats human bodies like discarded clothes. It's the one time we see Gojo truly lose his cool. Not because he's afraid of losing a fight, but because he's disgusted by the lack of humanity. These two rivalries represent the two paths Gojo rejected. He could have been a selfish god like Sukuna, or he could have been a cold, calculating machine like Kenjaku. Instead, he chose to be Satoru, the guy who buys souvenirs, the guy who worries about his students' grades. He chose to stay human, even when the world gave him every reason to let go. Being the strongest means everyone else is a variable in your equation. But Gojo refused to see people as numbers, even when Sukuna laughed at his mercy, even when Kenjaku used his grief against him. He stayed in the middle, holding the line between a world of monsters and a world of people. He is the only one who could handle that tension, because he's the only one strong enough to be kind in a world that only respects power. We've spent a long time walking through the mind of Satoru Gojo. We've seen the power, the isolation, and the heavy crown he wears. But if you take away the 6 eyes and the infinity, if you strip back the legend, what you're left with is a man who just wanted to see his friends smile. He once said that no one is allowed to take away the youth of the young. That was his core. His limitless wasn't just a technique to keep things away. It was a shield to keep the beauty of the world safe. He fought the most terrifying monsters in history, just so a group of teenagers could argue over where to eat dinner. He carried the weight of the world so they could be light. There's a certain peace in realizing you aren't the main character of the future. Gojo understood that. He knew he was the transition, a bridge between an old, rotting world and something new that he might never see. And he was okay with that. He didn't need to be the one to cross the finish line. He just needed to make sure the path was clear for those behind him. Think about the way he looks at the sky one last time. The blue is still there, infinite, unreachable. But he doesn't feel the need to be the strongest anymore. He's done his part. He's taught his lessons. He's loved the people he could reach. If there's one thing to take away from his philosophy, it's this. Strength isn't about how much you can destroy. It's about how much you can protect without losing yourself. It's about finding the hollow purple in your own life. The place where the red of your passion and the blue of your calm come together to create something incredible. The world is loud, the world is chaotic, but inside the infinity, there is a quiet space, a place where you can just breathe, where you don't have to be a hero or a worker or a student. You can just be. Satoru Gojo spent his life in that space, and now he's inviting you to find yours. The blindfold is off, the eyes are closed, the six senses are finally at rest. The students are ready. The future is in good hands. And for the first time, in a very long time, Satoru is at peace. The blue sky fades to black. The infinity closes. The work is done. Sleep well.